6 inches tall. I could eat 2 lobsters and 2 prime ribs in a pizza lunch, the entire pizza, and not gain a pound. That's not an issue for me today. What I'm going to talk a little bit about is 7 pieces of career advice for you in terms of watching your careers evolve instead. But before I do that, let me just tell you, I come from a road less traveled. That is, I have a Master's of Science. I got my SCD scientific doctorate in 19 months, and I wanted to get out there and change the world. But for me, my path was not in classic STEM, it was rather in management science. And through math and linear programming, using management science to do things like schedule patients, schedule surgeons, schedule nurses, make the world a better place, a more rational place at least. And I got heavily into public health. I visited 36 countries. I helped 36 prime ministers and presidents reform their entire healthcare system. And this is an important sector. Going into healthcare was the smartest thing I ever did, because healthcare is approximately 1/5 of the American economy. Healthcare is a big growth area. Before we get into my path back, starting with the summer of '67 into the astrophysics project, let me just tell you what it was like 46 years ago on this Friday night. The hotel we stayed at was the Shore Inn Hotel, 4 miles north of here. It was 40 degrees out. It was February 20th. And it was no snow on the ground, 40 degrees out. And Dorothy Shriver, who was this marvelous grandmotherly woman who'd been overseeing the competition for more than a quarter of a century, Dorothy Shriver said, "One word of advice to you. We're right on the edge of a park, and therefore no one go walking in the park because you might be mugged or attacked." So we all went up to our rooms upstairs on the 3rd and 4th floor. We all went up to the shore room, and guess what we decided to do? Take a walk in the park. So at 11 o'clock at night, 38 of the 40 of us took a walk in the park, practically holding hands, I might add. Took a walk in the park, and just to show you how things changed, maybe for the better, back then it was 4 women and 36 men. I'm very proud to say this is the first year in which the SDS class is majority women. It's 21 women, 19 men. I am very much a supporter of that. I kept my feminist bent even back then, because in 1971, I went and became one of the first 10 men to live at Radcliffe. I was outnumbered 90 to 1, but I survived the experience. Anyway, back to the walk in the park. So we get in Rock Creek Park, which is for those of you who love trivia, Rock Creek Park is the 2nd oldest national park in the National Park System. And we followed the park all the way down the creek. We walked 4 miles. And we got to the Lincoln Memorial. And we proceeded to go to the Lincoln Memorial and all chat and talk about this. And one of the members of the group had only been living in the United States for 3 years. He was from New York. And he decided to climb up on the Lincoln Memorial and sit in Lincoln's lap and make lots of comic noise and waving of the hands. Well, what happened is he immediately got arrested in under 10 seconds by the National Park Police. And then, and only then, did I begin to find my own personal true calling, which is this fellow who got arrested didn't even have an American driver's license. He's a 17-year-old. He had a passport, and the passport was from another country. So the 2 policemen were not exactly friendly. So I went up to the 2 policemen, and I used as much Boston charm as I could. I said, "Listen, we're in this science contest, and he has to be interviewed tomorrow. You can't arrest him." And proceeded to talk the 2 policemen into letting him go. So right then and there, I said, maybe public policy and diplomacy is my field. Interacting politically is my field. And I went, and 30 days later, applied and got an internship for Tip O'Neill, the congressman from Somerville in Cambridge. And so it was the smartest thing I ever did, becoming a summer intern, then getting into public health and public policy all throughout my career. Now let's go back to even younger than that in high school. My path from astrophysics, National Science Foundation grants in 67, 68, 69 in the summer. Suggestions for life? For you guys, be flexible. Life is what happens when you are making plans. plans. I remember being such a nerd and having every course laid out for me that I'd written out for the rest of my life as a 17-year-old. It doesn't happen. A lot of things intervene and change your life. STEM may include your strengths, but opportunity and luck can move you to careers, different careers, like public health, like working in NIH, like going and working with business schools to teach them that the health sector, human service sector is important. And likewise, science is important. It might teach a politician, one or two of them, that certainty and bias are the enemy of science. And you need to realize we need to constantly be retesting our hypotheses, constantly be pushing forth the boundary of knowledge. Point number one for you, for your generation, because you're living in a different era than this old guy 46 years older than you are. Point number one, do not get a job. Create your own career and create your own company. Get out there and create your own path. You're not going to have to all be sign up for a job. You're not all going to work in universities. For your generation, create your own career, create your own world, really. For example, you could go into computer-assisted design and use 3D printers to make cars. They require 99% fewer hours with a 400% higher capital productivity. In fact, computer-assisted cars, assisted design cars, have only 12 parts. An average car has 12,000 parts. That's why its productivity is so much higher making them. There are so many areas in which we are right on the vanguard of success and expansion. There's going to be somebody in this room that's going to do great work on climate change. He may be from Idaho. There's somebody in this room that's going to do great things in biosciences. That person may be from Maine. By the way, for me, one of the biggest shocks for this, I just have to tell you this, showing up at the hotel, is it was so nice to meet fellow nerds like me. It was so much different from high school. It was wonderful, really, meeting people like me. And we did subdivide ourselves the first night up into two kinds of groups of people. Now, I'm sure you people don't use these categories today, but back then, because we were all Sputnik babies from the 1957 launch of a German satellite, it was a lot of people in physics. And we broke ourselves up in the hotel lobby into two groups, theoreticians and plumbers. And we referred to each other in the hallways for the next 4.5 days as a theoretician versus a plumber. I now have equal respect and love for plumbers, for people going to engineering and other fields. I have none of that baggage I had when I was 17. If you change the culture, you'll change the world. Point two, go big or go home. Face the tough choices about your career. Also face the tough choices about approaching decision makers, like Barack Obama or Bill Clinton, and saying policy should go in this direction. I'm proud of the Affordable Care Act, getting 18.5 million Americans health insurance coverage, many of which had pre-existing conditions that couldn't allow them to have health insurance at all. You need to have an evolving vision. I got a chance to do healthcare reform in South Africa. Here's a marvelous quote for you from Nelson Mandela. Vision without action is just a dream. Action without vision is just passing time. But a great vision combined with great action can change the world. And by all means, I don't know who's going to develop the next great thing in terms of nanotechnology, in terms of dark energy or dark matter, but you are the future, and you're going to make a better future for all of us. Now, what did Carl Sagan teach me in the summer of 1967? I had two big advisors. I had David John Hollenbeck. That was literally my big advisor because he was 6'8" and he picked me for the grant. I'm 6'6", he's 6'8", and we made a great team, but I had the cubby hole next to Carl Sagan. And Carl Sagan taught me something in 1967. What he taught me is, I was there when he found out he didn't get tenure at Harvard. And he sort of kind of threw a fit. He decapitated his plants in the window and gave me the pots and said, whatever you do, kid, if you want to stay in the university and get tenure, and only then write critical popular stuff that dwells in your soul. That is, get tenure first, and then start writing the popular stuff, or the fiction stuff. Because if you do that too early, they'll think you're not a real scientist. So Sagan and I would link up again. When I finished my doctorate in 19 months, we'd link up again at Cornell in 1978. So it was a good friendship to have. and we'll miss him. But the fellow speaking at Tuesday night did a great job of recreating the series Cosmos. Don't you think that was a wonderful series by Neil deGrasse Tyson? That was a wonderful series. Career point number 3. If your lab director has a shirt reading, "Meetings will continue," get a new job. Life is too short. It's full of a-holes. Seriously, get a new job. Take a walk. You're young. You can take risk. Take a walk and don't sit around with people that will hold you down. I could give you case study after case study in 4 different American universities of the following problem happening. The big power, big cheese wants to keep the little people down and will keep you 9 years for your master's degree. And will keep you 12 years for your doctorate just because they want to use you as cheap apprentice labor. Do not get used. And do not get abused. And if he or she says something politically incorrect to you and then starts commenting on your anatomy, don't take that either. You need to, if you will, you need to take control of your own life and take some risk. There's times in which you need to change. Think big. Think about changing things system-wide. The American healthcare reform and national health insurance was forever imminent. I worked in my career for 14 years doing cost analysis and productivity and a lot of linear programming. Then in 1989, I took the big risk, and I started helping 36 nations over 27 years redesign their healthcare system. I worked with everybody from the Germans, who've had both Social Security and Medicare and national health coverage for all citizens since 1883. Who's going to be the Otto von Bismarck of American healthcare and bring us coverage for all Americans? The remaining 32 million Americans that don't have healthcare coverage right now. I don't know who that's going to be. It could be one of you in this room. But the point is, I also worked with countries like South Korea that gave me tremendous opportunities, and I took tremendous risk. The president of South Korea came up to me, President Roh Tae-woo, and the engineers in this room are going to love this story. And he said, "I'd like to take you drinking, and I need you to teach me 3 things in English. I need you to, this is President Roh Tae-woo running South Korea in 1989. I need you to teach me how to sing, 'I'm a rambling wreck from Georgia Tech and a hell of an engineer.' Then I need you to teach me 'Hail to the Victors' from the University of Michigan football team. Then I need to teach you that Harvard football song from your football team." So we did that for an hour and talked about such things. And the outgrowth of that particular experience in 1989 is I turned to him and I said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And he said, "I want to do I'm Mr. Conservative, I want to do one thing. I want to pass a big program that will remember me forever. In South Korea, you only get 5-year terms. So he said, I want to pass national health coverage for the 22% of South Koreans that have no health coverage. And I told him, I got the perfect document I have in my bag. I've carried this document in my bag since I met the guy in 1972 at Harvard. The guy's name was Wilbur Cohen. He was a visiting professor from Michigan. And he ran for Roosevelt. He was a speechwriter for Roosevelt at age 26. And he helped pass Medicare in 1965 and Medicare in 1965. And I said, I have kept in my bag since he handed me this document 17 years earlier than we, sitting in 1989 are, the copy of the original Medicare and Medicaid legislation. And that document was 1.5 pages long. And the last sentence of that document read, "And the secretary shall work out the details, period." We passed that bill and gave everybody a plastic insurance card in 6 weeks. In 6 weeks! We got 22% of the people in the country covered 6 weeks from the drinking songs. What's the moral of that story? I wish America would be a country like that again, that could make quick decisions, that could reach out and say, yeah, we got to cover everybody. I mean, President Roh Tae-woo was the Ronald Reagan in his country being conservative. But he said 22% of my country is small businessmen, it's farmers, it's people living a subsistence life in the city, and I want to cover them, and the fishermen, and I want to cover all 4 groups at once. And we did it in 6 weeks. He took the bill, he translated into Korean, and he only changed one phrase. The last sentence read, "And the secretary shall work out the details." He said, "And the secretary of Minister of Health and Social Affairs shall work out the details." In America, we call it health, education, and welfare. He just changed those 4 words, and he got it passed. He got it passed. So I'd like to see us think big, think system-wide, and make some major action. We need to grow something new and not just trim things. We need to get beyond the cutting, cut, view of the world, trim and cut everything. And think big. Career point number 4 for you, take risks. Get out on a limb because that is where the fruit is. You may have limits, you may only have a beer budget, you can't afford champagne, but you should limit rigidity and link a systems approach with a bias towards action, bring things all together. By the way, who taught me that quote, go out on a limb because that is where the fruit is? Marvelous quickie story. I go to a conference as a grad student to Atlanta, to Peachtree Lane in 1974. I'm late for the conference. I don't even remember how much the plane ticket cost. It cost $808 to fly Boston to Atlanta and back. This is before airline deregulation in 1978. Anyway, I fly to Atlanta. I've got my little Marriott thing for $35 a night to stay at the Marriott for 3 nights. I meet up in the last row with a woman who shows up 10 minutes late for the conference. So both of us are 10 minutes late. So we sit huddle in the back and whisper comments to each other. And she said she just worked for Mother Teresa in India for the last 2 years, and she is a public health nurse from Plains, Georgia. And to make a long story short, she said, I'll save you $35 a night, come home and you can stay at my son's place. So I did. Her son was named Jimmy Carter, got elected president of the United States, and he did a pretty darn good job. I helped write for him the Hospital Cost Containment Act in 1978. Now, what have we done principally in the last 10 years that's helped a little bit in American healthcare? VBP, which stands for value-based purchasing. If your quality scores go up, you get a payment bump. You get paid more for better quality. And we're monitoring now 65 quality metrics. So we're getting in there and trying to make the health economy more efficient and more effective. And certainly, if you look at how we rank, for example, on quality measures, we're in 31st place, where Japan is in 2nd, or France is in 1st, or Canada is in 3rd or 6th. We have a lot of countries doing with 40% less money better than the United States is in quality scores as measured by the World Health Organization. Which leads to career point number 5. Do not be arrogant. Conflicts will always arise between theoreticians and plumbers, but in every little field you can think of examples of which a certain kind of person saved the day. For example, I had to give a speech at Microsoft, and I happened to turn to the audience and say, you all know Tommy Douglas. He's just been named by the Canadian Broadcasting Association, CBA, the most important person that ever lived. Do you know Tommy Douglas? And everybody in the room put up their hand. And I said, this is impossible. Because if I give this speech like in Washington or Boston or in Scottsdale, Arizona, nobody put up their hand. And they said, Tommy Douglas is the best seafood, Douglas crab cook in Seattle. So I suddenly realized I had the wrong Tommy Douglas. Tommy Douglas is a guy who is the version of Speaker of the House in 1959, passed national health insurance for Canada. Do you know that the world's greatest hockey players ranked 2nd and 3rd place, and Tommy Douglas is remembered by each Canadian right now as being the most popular and greatest Canadian at all times, because he gave them total coverage in 1959. So think big, do not be arrogant. He was the ultimate of being non-arrogant. Another example of somebody who did good things without being arrogant. Pure math theoreticians can at times save the day for others. Einstein in 1940 went to Professor Marcel Grossman, an expert in Riemann geometry, to say, listen, I need to describe 4-dimensional space-time, Euclidean geometry as it work. Teach me Riemann geometry. And that's what Einstein used 18 months later for his 2 famous papers. So open up to theoreticians and open up to plumbers. We need not use those terms in any negative sense. Career point number 6. Do not be overly safe or wimpy. Talk to real decision makers. Get in there and talk to the people that count. Women have played a big part in my life. People like Mary Bunting, president of Radcliffe College in the early 70s. People like Grace Hooper. I had Grace Hooper come up, the first woman rear admiral, come up and speak to Cornell students in 78, 79, and 80. She was the author of COBOL. She taught me that risk-taking is key. And if the mistake requires an apology, offer one up. But by all means, take a lot of risk and don't check it with your boss. Ships are safe in port, but that is not what ships are built for. Test the waters, get outside of your comfort zone. It's better to apologize than to have no bias for action. And Grace Hopper did that throughout her career, and that's what made her the first female admiral. That's what made her so successful. Last but not least, career point number 7. You make your own breaks. You literally make your own breaks. Be it an advisor for Bill and Al, or be it an advisor for President Obama, you need to make your own breaks. And teach them about science. Teach them about the 3 I's, investing in valid benchmarks, improvement of goals, improving gain sharing, insight, like P for P, P for P stands for pay for performance. And if you have a vision for things, by all means get it out there and talk it out with the most important decision makers you can meet. I always like being the least important person in the room. It means I'm qualified to just barely get into the room. I always like to be the least important person speaking for, a Harvard group. It's important to get in the group. I'll quote the late Carl Sagan. You need to think globally. Pollutants do not carry passports. 35% of California air pollution, 15 years after Sagan passed away, is from China. You need to realize all these problems we face are global nowadays. So when you look for your own purpose, and you look to bond and do teamwork with your own people, and you will follow the careers of some of the people in this room. Maybe 8, 10, or 12 people in this room. Maybe 2 people you went to elementary school with in this room, like that, for example, a case example. And remember to work with your principles. Don't compromise your principles, but there's a lot of education that needs to be done. For example, if you have a U.S. Senator in charge of science and technology from Oklahoma, bringing a snowball into the House of Representatives, or in this case, bringing it into the Senate family dining room and saying, there's no global warming, there's no climate change, see the snowball? You know that there's work that needs to be done. Same group of people, all members of one side on the Science and Technology Subcommittee, each thought that sea levels can never rise because it's just ice cubes in a glass of water melting down, and therefore the level of water never changes. They learned that from the Rush Limbaugh show, and needless to say, that's not science. And they're still saying those things in February of 2016, which they've been corrected on twice a year the previous 6 years. So get out there with principles, stand. My favorite word for my 2 jobs in China is Ouija. Ouija is the simultaneous dual interpretation of it's both opportunity and it's also danger. So get in there and take some risk. Take some risk because you're young. This is the time in which you can take risk. And don't get tied up with the wrong people in the wrong place at the wrong time. I thank you. It's been a pleasure.